Hello, grantees, and welcome to this site monitoring visit briefing. My name is SRAE Thompson, and I serve as a federal project officer within the Adolescent Pregnancy Prevention Program and FISB task lead for site monitoring visits. I'm facilitating this briefing with Dr. Kanika Hall from RTI International, who serves as the training and technical assistant task lead, and Janine Albert, a public health analyst also with RTI International. So on behalf of FISB and RTI, we welcome you again to this briefing. The purpose of today's briefing is to provide an overview of site monitoring visits for APP grantees to lead a successful site visit. By the end of this briefing, you will have a better understanding of the site monitoring visit process, understand the role and responsibilities that need to be assigned to ensure a smooth site monitoring visit, be able to use tools available to assist with site monitoring visit planning, and start constructing a plan to be prepared for your site monitoring visit. To ensure these objectives are met, we will discuss PREP and SRAE funding stream requirements, site monitoring visit overview, and site monitoring visit tools. Let's start with a quick review of APP funding streams and requirements. The PREP programs include state, tribal, and community efforts to prevent teen pregnancy and the spread of sexually transmitted infections. The four funding streams are state PrEP, competitive PrEP, tribal PrEP, and PrEP innovative strategies, also known as PREAS. PrEP programs must include activities to educate youth on both abstinence and contraception, and must place substantial emphasis on both abstinence and contraception for the prevention of pregnancy and STIs, including HIV/AIDS among youth. They must also address at least 3 of the 6 congressionally mandated adult preparation subjects as part of contraception and abstinence education. Additional requirements include evidence-based and effective programs, fidelity and adaptations, providing medically accurate and age and culturally appropriate programming, trauma-informed approaches, referrals to healthcare and other services, and for PREAS and innovative strategies. FISB funds 3 distinct SRAE funding streams. These include Title V State SRAE, Title V Competitive SRAE, and General Departmental SRAE. Program requirements for SRAE include an emphasis on a message to youth that normalizes avoiding non-marital sexual activity, evidence-based and effective programs, fidelity and adaptations, medically accurate materials, and culturally and age-appropriate approach, and positive youth development. Listed here, SRAE must address each of the A through F success sequences. Now we get into the fun part. Before we take a deeper dive into discussing site monitoring visits, I would first like to quickly provide an overview of the differences between a site monitoring visit and a site monitoring visits. The site visit is an abbreviated review of grantee performance and may include a focus on a specific area of programming, physical operations, data collection, and/or evaluation. In some cases, a site visit will consist of exploration and review of pre-identified challenges or FISB's request to observe a promising practice in program implementation. The site visit is conducted over a half to full day time span by the grantee's assigned project officer. In comparison to site visits, site monitoring visits take a more in-depth review of grantee performance. Site monitoring visits typically last for several days, approximately 2 to 3, and they incorporate things like conducting interviews with program staff, partners, and youth participants, my personal favorite, reviewing programmatic documents, and observing program implementation. Please note that the project officer will determine whether or not a grantee receives a site visit or a site monitoring visit. The site monitoring team will consist of the assigned federal project officer, who will lead the site monitoring visit, and a technical assistance provider. On occasion, a member of the DPYD leadership team may also participate in site monitoring visits for observation. For example, if leadership is new or in the area of the site monitoring visit on duty, they may request to participate. There may also be a new federal project officer present, just observing for hands-on training or filling in for a sick project officer. Know that there will be no surprises. You will be informed in advance of additional staff that will be present during your site monitoring visit. There are several reasons that FISB conducts site monitoring visits with grantees. First, we are seeking to ensure that grantees are providing programming in accordance with the legislation and the Notice of Funding Opportunity that governs the PREP and SRAE programs. Also, site monitoring visits provide a chance for FISB to review grantee planning documents and identifying promising practices that demonstrate the potential for integration into future program implementation. Additionally, site monitoring visits provide an opportunity for both FISB and grantees to identify areas of concern that may require additional attention or support so that programs can be improved. As previously stated, several activities will take place during a full visit. They include things like reviewing grantee program records, having meetings and conducting in-depth interviews with different grantee staff members, partners, and observing program implementation. At the end of the site monitoring visit, the site monitoring team will draft a report that focuses on 3 overarching areas: programming and participants, data collection and record keeping, and organizational capacity. The site monitoring visit process is 90 days as outlined in the timeline here. Grantees are notified 45 days in advance for a site monitoring visit and 30 days in advance for a site visit. During that time, you will meet with your federal project officer and the TA provider assigned to answer any questions you may have. 15 days before the site monitoring visit, the grantee will provide their final agenda, which will be reviewed for any questions by the federal project officer and the TA provider. And finally, within 45 days after the site monitoring visit has been completed, grantees will receive a final copy of their report, along with any noted conformance issues and a corrective action plan. Prior to the site monitoring visit, grantees will receive a notification letter from FISB. In addition to the letter, grantees will receive a list that outlines their responsibilities and preparation needs. Additionally, grantees will receive a sample agenda, which will assist them in planning specific blocks of time for meetings, interviews, observations, and other activities. Lastly, grantees will receive a copy of the site monitoring tool, which we will review today, to better understand the types of questions they will be asked and evaluated on. In preparation for the visit, grantees should designate a site liaison so that the site monitoring team has a single primary contact person who can be reached during and after the visit. Grantees should also review and familiarize themselves with the information received from their project officer concerning the site visit and return the necessary documents in a timely manner. Example of some documents would be your organizational chart, case files, documentation of training logs and program fidelity, and interview schedules. Additionally, grantees should coordinate logistics with the project officer concerning dates, agendas, and subrecipient availability. And if your site monitoring visit is in person, then addresses and any additional information you require from project officers and TA provider to access implementation sites. For example, some detention centers and schools require additional forms of identification, not just our fancy work badges. Grantees should also make sure all staff members are aware of the upcoming site monitoring visit so that everyone is in place and not missing during this important part of the assessment and performance process. The grantee will be responsible for providing 3 preferred dates. So you'll want to keep in mind planned staff leave, state holidays, known weather conditions in your state or territory that may affect attendance during your site monitoring visit. Grantees should prepare an introductory presentation for the site monitoring team that describes the program in the context in which the program operates. Grantees should use their grant application and progress reports for the basis of this description. Discuss the program as it had initially been proposed, as well as modifications and staffing changes that have occurred over time. And lastly, the grantee should briefly discuss any successes and challenges experienced through the life of the grant. Prior to the site monitoring visit, the site monitoring team will review funding legislation, the NOFO, grantee applications, recent progress reports. During the visit, the site monitoring team will also conduct program observations, observing a session from the curriculum, document reviews, which will include your fidelity logs, attendance logs, and training logs, and also conducting interviews with program and grantee staff and youth participants, as stated earlier. Here you will see an outline structured of the site monitoring visit. Note that all site monitoring visits will have the same basic structure. The next two slides will show a sample agenda for the site monitoring visit, which will be provided by your federal project officer. You will work with your project officer to finalize the agenda prior to the site monitoring visit. To quickly review, grantee should have a site liaison who is available and flexible, provide access to documentation, staff members, and youth participants as necessary, facilitate an opportunity for a member of the site monitoring team to observe a program implementation session with participants, provide a copy of the lesson plan for the module to the site monitoring team prior to the session, and help facilitate a smooth progression through the agenda by ensuring that all persons to be interviewed are available at the scheduled time. Interviews will be scheduled with grantee administrators and staff members, educators, facilitators, local evaluators, subrecipients, community partners, and youth participants. Youth interviews provide valuable insight to your program and the chosen curricula. Please work with your federal project officer if you are finding this difficult to schedule. Youth will not be recorded nor their names used in the report. Also, an opportunity for a member of the site monitoring team to observe a curricula session should also be scheduled if available. The observation should be planned so that the federal project officer and TA provider can gain access to the facility. You will want to get approval from an administrator or other individual who can authorize visitors. Overall, program observation allows the site monitoring team an opportunity to observe facilitation of your selected curriculum in an actual program setting. The site monitors will get to see how well the facilitator delivers the program and how engaged the participants are. They will get to hear some of the questions and comments the participants may have and how the facilitator responds. And lastly, the exit interview. This is the final part of the site monitoring agenda. This is an opportunity for the site monitoring team and the grantee project director and administrators to review the overall findings of the site visit, to discuss best and promising practices, and any issues or concerns that arose during the visit. The exit interview discussion is also a time for both parties to ask additional questions and clarify any information that is missing or unclear. The site monitors may provide follow-up action steps to be taken by the project officer and/or grantee. Grantees will receive a copy of the report within 45 days of the site monitoring visit. If areas of noncompliance are identified, grantees are expected to respond within 30 days with a written plan to address these issues. Additionally, the project officer may recommend that technical assistance be provided. I will now turn things over to Janine Albert.
Now we will walk through the setup of the Microsoft Teams site. A Microsoft Teams site for each site monitoring visit contains folders corresponding to the 11 sections of the site monitoring visit report will be created. Grantees will then upload relevant documents into each folder, including what is requested on the document request form. Grantees will also provide the federal project officer and technical assistance provider a list of staff who will upload relevant documents to the Microsoft Teams site. They can then upload the documents in the Site Monitoring Documents folder. When you log into the Teams site, you may see two folders. The only folder you will have access to is the one labeled Site Monitoring Documents. Once you click on that folder, you will see 11 folders. Each folder corresponds to a different question on the site monitoring visit report, and you can upload the appropriate documents into each folder as mentioned previously. Now I will pass it on to Kanika.
Now we will discuss the Site Monitoring Visit Report, which summarizes data collected during each site monitoring visit and is used by the Site Monitoring Visit team to collect and organize field notes and to document evidence of program progress using items such as grantee reports, protocols, and planning documents. The site monitoring tool is divided into 11 core sections, each of which contains an overarching question, as well as supporting items that allow the site monitoring visit team to probe and gather more specific information about a grantee's or a subrecipient's activities. The site monitoring visit report is divided into 11 core sections: administration, collaboration, partnerships and referral sources, quality improvement and internal assessment, participant recruitment and retention, staffing and staff development, curriculum features, fidelity and fidelity monitoring, data collection, research and evaluation, sustainability, and fiscal management. Let's dive a little deeper into each of these core sections and their requirements. The first core section is administration. This section examines how effectively grantees and subawardees administer programs in supporting the implementation of quality services for participants. Some of the items that support this question include having a clear project governance structure that outlines staff's roles and responsibilities, having a well-defined procedure for monitoring subrecipients and implementation activities across the catchment service area, and establishing a policy or procedure for addressing any potential controversy or negative reaction from the community, given the sensitive nature of the topic of adolescent pregnancy prevention and personal responsibility. The next section focuses on grantee-established collaboration, partnerships, and referral sources, and how these factor into the delivery of quality services to all program participants. Partnerships, collaborations, and referral sources may be solidified through memoranda of understanding or some other type of written agreement. To ensure that such partnerships are effective and align with the needs of a grantee's program and participants, they should also establish a plan for assessing partner engagement. For SRE grantees only, we are looking for how does the grantee ensure referral services support the goal of optimal health outcomes that do not normalize sex outside of marriage and requirements related to contraception. Improving program quality and conducting an internal assessment of grantee activities is the focus of the next core section. Again, we are looking at this through an eye toward making sure grantees are delivering quality services to participants. Important components of this question include having a mechanism in place for participants to provide feedback on your program and making sure they are effectively engaged to help make your program better and included in your program improvements. Also, we want to ensure that any changes that grantees make to their programs are in line with fidelity requirements. The next core section, participant recruitment and retention, seeks to determine the effectiveness of grantees' efforts to recruit and retain program participants. Pertinent to recruitment and retention, the site monitoring team will focus on whether grantees have clearly defined their target population and the benefits that youth and their families stand to gain by participating in your programs. They will also look at whether those plans involve the intentional inclusion of vulnerable youth populations and whether a written plan exists that outlines the specific tasks and activities for those populations. Additionally, soliciting participant feedback and incorporating it into your recruitment and retention plans is also an important step that can shed light on potential reasons for participant dropout, which is a common challenge that grantees will want to address swiftly. It can also help redirect your efforts if necessary. Paying close attention and incorporating these items into recruitment and retention plans will likely ensure more effective engagement among program participants. The next section on staffing and staffing development assesses the effectiveness of your hiring and training program and how it contributes to the quality of services provided to your participants. You will want to ensure that all project staff meet eligibility requirements and that you conduct background checks as required by your local jurisdiction. You also want to take a close look at your staffing levels, making sure that they are adequate to provide program oversight and that you are able to deliver what you promise in your approved grant application. Beyond having qualified staff in place, you must ensure that staff all have the necessary training and materials needed to implement your program. So, we will be looking for your training plan and tracking system to ensure that the trainings needed are happening. Once we know who is implementing a particular program, we will look to see what you are actually implementing. That is, we want to know that a grantee's selected curriculum addresses the specific age-related and cultural needs of your prioritized populations. How did you select your curriculum, and why is it a best fit for your program? To what extent does it address all of your program requirements and include evidence-based or evidence-informed program? And have you verified the medical accuracy of the information you are providing to participants via your curriculum? PrEP is all about positive youth development to reduce the risk of sexual encounters, including adolescent pregnancy. So that definitely needs to be a part of your selected curriculum if you are a PrEP grantee, in addition to at least 3 adult preparation subjects as outlined in the funding opportunity announcements. For SRAE grantees, the curriculum is assessed to assure the inclusion of information on contraception that is medically accurate and complete, that conveys the message that contraception offers physical risk reduction and not risk elimination, and is free of demonstrations, simulations, or distribution of contraceptive devices. For Title V state and competitive grantees, the curriculum is assessed for emphasis on the 6 required topics that normalize the optimal health behavior of avoiding non-marital sexual activity. The next section highlights fidelity and fidelity monitoring. Specifically, the site monitoring visit team will be interested in how well grantees monitor, track, and adhere to the components of their program. To ensure fidelity in your program, grantees should have a well-written plan that outlines how they will appropriately monitor fidelity, as well as an appropriate system to track adherence to their program implementation plan. Grantees should ensure that their facilitators receive adequate training in fidelity and fidelity monitoring, and have facilitators document any deviations they make from the program model. Such deviations may result in adaptations that must first be approved by your project officer. Lastly, it's a good idea for grantees to use fidelity monitoring data to make needed program improvements and to enhance performance. The next core section covers data collection. Here, the site monitoring team will examine how effectively grantees collect data for the purpose of conducting effective performance management of their programs. Performance management involves assessing several measures like fidelity, implementation, outcomes, and community level data. Additionally, grantees must strive to ensure compliance with their approved program plans. And as always, proper approval should be obtained from your local IRB as needed before commencing with any data collection activities. Related to data collection, research and evaluation look specifically at the design of a grantee's local evaluation and whether that design is guided by a clear logic model. I want to be clear in saying that conducting a local evaluation is optional for grantees. Understand that not all will choose to do a local evaluation. Grantees may choose to do a long-term impact evaluation of their program or a thorough needs assessment That could include, among other things, a description of local resources and capacity related to personal responsibility and education. From this, grantees may choose to conduct further descriptive studies and analysis, such as measuring educational dosage and participant reach, or local staffing capacity, which could eventually result in a solid evaluation of their program. These items do not constitute an exhaustive list of what should be included in a local evaluation. Rather, they are complementary elements that grantees may include in their plans should they choose to conduct a local evaluation. Again, it is important to note that obtaining IRB approval is mandatory before conducting these types of research and evaluation activities. For previous grantees, please note the evaluation requirements are much more detailed and may be tied specifically to your cooperative agreements. Your federal project officer is prepared to help you understand those requirements, so please reach out to them so that you can prepare accordingly. The next course section looks closely at grantees' sustainability efforts and how you plan to continually provide quality services to participants beyond your funded grant period. To make programs sustainable, you need to have a plan in place to ensure that key elements of your program remain intact. Subrecipients and partners are critical for long-term sustainability. So, you will need to identify program champions early on and figure out ways to keep them on board. Likewise, you want to solidify community buy-in or seek buy-in from other segments of the community to generate demand for your programs beyond your federal funding period. This may involve creating real and tangible opportunities for community members to have a vested interest in your program. The next course section looks for effective fiscal management to support quality implementation and services to participants. The site monitoring visit team will review your written procedures for budgetary and programmatic decisions, your internal and auditing controls to safeguard federal funds, and review your policies and tracking systems to monitor costs and expenditures and subrecipient compliance. Please scan the QR code here to access a site monitoring visit preparation tool, which gives additional details for each of the 11 course sections discussed. Review the requirements and the checklist provided for each course section. You are able to use this tool to prepare documentation as possible evidence of satisfying the core questions listed. Speak with your federal project officer if you need assistance in preparing documentation so that they can submit a technical assistance request on your behalf. As we have attempted to highlight in this presentation, successful site monitoring visits require a substantial amount of organization and preparation to run smoothly. If the grantee is selected to participate in a site monitoring visit, their federal project officer will reach out to them in advance to discuss logistics, grantee responsibilities, and the structure of the visit, as well as to gather any necessary documents to help with their preparations. RTI will provide a secure folder on Microsoft Teams for grantees to upload these documents, and that folder will only be accessible by the grantee and the site monitoring visit team. Finally, I would like to reiterate that the goal of the site monitoring visit is not to penalize or criticize grantees in any way. In fact, it's quite the opposite. The site monitoring visit team wants to learn about promising practices that can lead to successful program implementation and to help grantees address any challenges they may be experiencing in an effort to improve their programs and provide the best opportunity for youth to thrive and be successful.
This concludes our briefing. We hope the information provided helps you as you prepare for a successful site monitoring visit. Please reach out to your federal project officer if you have any questions or need assistance.